Go live. Hey everyone. There is actually no one watching currently. If you make it, if you turn up, feel free to go and let's actually say hi. Send out. Oh. I can hear myself on my screen, which is kind of weird. Once I get a viewer or two, so what I'm going to be trying to do, I'm just going to start coding in Rust. I haven't actually had a lot of let's go, and I will send a link on my Discord. Where is my Discord? It's kind of refreshing not to have any viewers actually. How you going, everyone? What we're going to be chatting through about is the release of a new software package called Nannou, or Nannou, not sure. Let me share my screen. If I can figure this out. Apparently I can't. I need to click the right button. Share the screen, and it's this one. Oh, there I am. It's nice to see you. So what we're going to be doing, having a look at this thing called Nannou. The actual website is quite cool. It's a creative coding framework, and it's really fun and very, very fast and good. So, and they've just had a new release 4 days ago. The package maintainers released it. So let's give it a spin. Now that's not exactly what I wanted. So how do we start with Nannou? Well, the first thing that we can go to is the guide. The guide's up here, brings us to, and getting started. We want to install the programming language. We don't need to do that. I've already got Rust installed. If you're on Ubuntu, you'll need to install some extra packages, or in fact, if you're on Linux, you'll need to install some extra packages because Nannou makes good use of your GPU. Installing Rust, okay, that's fine. And I'll just make sure that I've got those components. Yes, I do. That's good. I might make this a bit darker actually. No, okay. Get editor set up, which is useful for us. What we're going to be looking through today is some of the examples Now, Nannou's just a Rust project. So if I go to projects and I git clone the repository, then I should be able to just kind of start. Yeah, so hey Chris, it's quite difficult. Like it's good. Or at least I shouldn't say, well, we're going to start off with something that's really hard. But I found it kind of finicky when I tried to play around with it at first. I haven't actually explored the new... Oh, I've got all these other creative projects. That's the wrong directory. Yeah, it's definitely something that's worth playing with. And so let's have a go now, because it kind of, if you think about like, well, I sort of see it in the same way that like Rails extended Ruby, Nannou kind of adds a bunch of extras to Rust, in particular around like random number generation. It's very, how should I put this? It's very, like it has a big prelude. And what I mean by that is that it imports lots and lots of stuff. And let's see about running some of these. So in order, if I'm in, I'll just make this a bit larger. I'm so out of touch with streaming. It's been months now. I've been working on a secret project, which I'm very excited about, but isn't yet live. And I'm hoping that it will we'll be able to see that soon. Now I just also need to get some light on my face, because I could just make it light. Sorry, I'm just mucking around. Text. I now got people watching and I'm not getting flustered. So theme. My thing is crashing, which is always positive. Let's choose. Oh, goodness me. Ugh. Sorry about your eyes. But this way you can actually see me. Okay. Now we want to run an example. And so if I look, I'm in the directory here into Nannou. So we've just done the git clone step. And then what we want to do is run an example. So we're going to run the draw example, which is probably called draw. And I go to draw.rs and we'll explain what it is that is happening. You can see that again, Nannou, as I've described, is like a really large package. It is installing lots of stuff. Hey, Albertan, or Albertan, or I'm sure that I'm going to get your Spanish pronunciation incorrect, so I won't even try. But hi from New Zealand. It's lovely to catch up. It's nice to know it's probably morning there. I hope that you're looking forward to Friday. Now I also want to increase the zoom, the font size a little bit, because that way we can start explaining the code. What we're going to, so Nannou works with, if you ignore main for a moment, it in essence will call a function every frame, and that function will live for 16 milliseconds. That will require, this will happen 60 times per second. And in this case, every single frame, we are going to be coloring the background blue, and we have these constants for colors. It looks like we're going to be drawing, oh, it says right here in the comment, we're going to be drawing a purple triangle in the top half left of the window. Then in ellipse which will follow the mouse. So as my mouse moves around, the circle will also. We've got a line, a quad, so I guess that's a square, which follows the inverse of the ellipse, and a rectangle, which I assume means fixed. I'm interested. I'll actually double check what a quad is. So if I go to I'm not getting a lot of help from the editor yet because it hasn't compiled the code. Again, it's like 400 packages that it's trying to install. And eventually, this is not a great package to really kind of demonstrate. Like if you're talking about like how wonderful Rust's compile time is, this is not something that is a big plus for Nannou. Actually, it's quite bad. Yeah, and yeah, it does look at this is just it does look kind of horrible. And in fact, I just realized that we're going to need to do this again under release mode. But there should, in principle, be a one-time operation of compiling all of these dependent crates. I can go and have a poke around in the file system so you can have a look at finding out what's actually happening. But yes, it does look very similar to just running like apt-get update, apt-get update, apt-get upgrade. Oh, goodness me. We have so many packages we've got to install. It's kind of a long, boring process. So how about I ask some questions? How about what is everyone else? What are you doing with Rust? And why are you watching a Rust stream? It seems like something that kind of relatively niche. I'm curious as to what people are up to with the language. I will look back at the microphone very soon. I just am doing something off screen to get a background that I want. For a terminal. It looks kind of not decent, but okay. So Rust is currently compiling. So what on earth is that? If I look in my current directory, I'm in a project directory, and inside there'll be a target. In the target directory is where all of the compiler artifacts are going to turn up. And what it's currently doing now is expending, it's creating a whole bunch of artifacts inside the debug, inside this debug directory, which if I have tree installed, which I probably don't, it's like a lot of stuff is getting done. And this was all being pre-cached. So this is several hundred, I guess it's 400 dependencies that are being compiled. I thought it would be fun to do it from scratch, but actually it's a bit boring. Oh, cool. And so we got some answers, which is really neat. So I'll start with coffee because I quite like coffee. Now, you're in France, so I bet your coffee does not have milk in it. I was looked at very, very strangely in Paris when I asked for like café au lait. That they thought I was very, very odd. New Zealand has a very strong coffee culture, but it's a very different coffee culture to the rest of the world. Okay, so there's a really here's our. So this is draw. This is the draw example, and meanwhile, I'll just answer some more questions, and we can maybe tinker with some of these variables, and we'll recompile. So you can see here, I'll just take away the quad and we'll see what that is. I assume maybe quad just means square. I can always just look up the documentation potentially. So anyway, so Philip's question or like response is picking up Rust as a hobby language as I'm not coded in my day job, mostly React and TypeScript. It's been really interesting as watching a sort of as an old person. No, I don't mean old. Someone who's been in the Rust community for sort of 6 or 7 years now, seeing a lot of front end interest in Rust. It's been very, very encouraging. When I started, there was this idea that really it was a systems programming language, and it might enter new domains, but it's really nice to see that has actually happened. I want to move to the quad implementation. Properties related to drawing a quad. It's still, I assume it's a square, but it's not. And then another front-end developer trying to learn Rust and WebAssembly, and Jeremy here is learning Rust. You can do it, Jeremy. I know you can. Like, you're a very smart cookie. And a Rust and Vulkan seems like kind of ambitious. I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you a lot tonight. We're just mucking around with some of these code examples. I thought was the idea. So we can change our color. Let's does anyone have a favorite color? I just saw this comment as well. I'm so excited that there are like plotter people that are interested in pen plotters. This is my one. It's been looking at me, and it's really wanted me. It's been making me feel very, very bad because I've been neglecting it for a couple of weeks. If I wasn't on stream, I would be using that plotter. Vegemite color. Okay, let's change it to dark brown. Is there a dark brown? Was that... we've got dark brown. There we go. Let's see if that... Oh, it's not happy. Oh, it's probably... See, this is one of the things with the... Oh, this is actually part defined in a different crate, in the Conrad crate, which is not actually part of... Now, you could say that brown is more of a... Like, Vegemite is probably like a dark, like tar-like color. And... But we'll see. Oh, goodness me. It's going to be pale golden. I just need to I'm going to look into these color constants, because I think what's happening is the editor is doing autocorrect and is bringing it new colors into local scope that don't implement the right traits. So what's happening here is I have a... so this compiler error is occurring because I'm using a type, which in this case is RGB or sRGB. So that's and then that is like one of the color models. It's quite a common one in for screen, and it's being implemented as a small array of U8 of single byte characters that range from 0 to 255. Now, if I bring in a different color, different constant, so this one was brown, and you see here on the right that it is there are a whole bunch of different options around like where to get these constants from. It's because every package wants to be able to give you a nice, easy to use constant, but my editor isn't smart enough to know that I should only be trying to access things that are in local scope. Okay, so you can see here that this is an example of a state-based or a state-free or stateless application, really. It's only using the mouse location as a guiding principle. I think it's and T. So T is bound to be as app.time. So we do have one part of state, but we're not actually managing state at all. We've only got this view thing. We can tinker around other bits and pieces. One thing that's quite cool to do is to add a color and then give it an alpha. So if I say black and then set alpha to 0.9, I think, or even 9.7, I think this will work. No, it won't. I'm going to check the Nannou documentation to see how to do this. So firstly, what I'm going to do is go to background. My editor will invite me to go to the source code. And you see here that it takes a color type, or at least that makes sense to me. How about we look at the API documentation, Nannou API docs. So we'll go to Nannou CC. Sorry if I'm ignoring your questions, by the way. I want to go to docs, and we're going to look up background. And what we're interested in isn't so much the type, which is what gets returned from the background method of draw. We want to be able to what we really want to be able to do is send a color in and then give it an alpha. So what I'm going to do is be a little bit sneaky and see here that I've got this color scalar thing. Now I'm sure that I could just give it an integer and it will work. So you can see here that the method itself is implemented as red, green, and blue. And that's really useful for me because if I can just give, because I'm trying to do black with a constant, I bet I could just do RGB A, and then 0, 0, 0 for black. I apparently need a floating point number. And then for the alpha channel, I want to give it sort of 97%. And we'll see what we'll create is kind of an interesting effect. By the way, feel free to ask any questions as I'm going along if there's parts of Rust that you'd like me to explain. This didn't work. Annoyingly, I've only made what have I done? I thought that I had removed the background, so I thought what I wanted was it to just basically fade. So I'm going to try something different, which is to draw a rectangle on top, and it will be at 0, 0, I think. Actually, we'll do a different. Should we do a different example? I want to draw a texture. And I've got an image in path nature. I wonder where that is. Where's the assets path? Over here is assets. And inside assets, there's an image. And there should be some nature photos inside. Let's see what happens when I run example, draw texture. By the way, so I'm compiling. You notice that this time it's much faster, although it's not particularly nice to work with. It is kind of sluggish. Hey, thanks so much. This is it's always really nice to hear when people have enjoyed the book, and I really hope that you've learned a lot from it. It took me a lot of work. If, by the way, you don't know what Arnav is describing, I'm the author of Rust in Action, which is, I guess I may as well show people the link. Oh, that's not what I want. This book here says I own the product because it knows me so well. And I think, and Google also says you've visited this page many times. So this is my book. Anyway, we're not here for my book. We are here for Nannou. Thanks, Jeremy. See you later. Bye. Okay. Let's start to explore a little bit more of Nannou. So we have our texture, and that was a bit boring. It didn't change. But we have successfully loaded a texture into a model, and we have retained that state over the course of the over multiple views. So this sounds a bit strange. In the first example, we only had a view function. We did not have a model. Everything happened in every frame. I'll just go back to that. So draw, again, everything happened in view. Now we've got some state that we wish to retain inside model. Nannou has a very simple, it's trying to provide simplicity for you. So this is based on the processing approach of having a view step and an update step. Nannou also includes a model step, which is basically your initialization, where you take some information about the world. In this case, it's the application, which is it represents things like, I think we can call in things like available monitors, where this application is actually running to, and we get things like how many frames have elapsed and so forth. And then we're building up the state. So in this case, that example is pretty easy. If we change we'll just change the image, nature to JPEG, we'll get a different picture. How about we implement an update step where we change the model? That sounds fun, or at least mostly fun. So you can see nature 2, we've got a different picture, which is useful for us. Okay, so now how do we update? So we want the next thing we need is, I think, an update step. And it takes, I bet it will be in one of these other examples, although actually I'll refer back to the documentation just to be very specific. Nannou CC, not to be specific, but to make sure that you are able to follow along later. And then we're actually writing a sketch. And so there is view, draw to frame. That's not what we want. We want update. Here we go. I will post on the chat the link that I'm following. So we want to copy this update function. And I'll just do, and I'll move it along. Let me know if that gets annoying seeing the screen. So what we want to do is we're adjusting the model, and I'm going to take the image path again and say one in every 24 frames would be, sorry, one every 60 frames would be it'll transition per second. So it would say let frame app elapsed frames, and then it's like if frame, and we'll do it once every 60 seconds equals 0, or doesn't equal 0, then return none. That will be easiest. That will give us the most amount of space. And now we can a random range. We've got 4 images in there. I think the first 1, and then we'll have 4. I think that's right. And then over here in our assets path, I'll just change this. We're in images, nature, and then we want _1. I'll change it so that we add format, and we'll just get a random picture every second. This won't actually compile yet. It'll tell me that I want a string slice and not a string. So I'm going to add an ampersand, and that will coerce the type tool reference. This one, just as a kind of weird technical reason. So I've got some compile problems. I don't have an assets directory defined inside the scope of update. Okay, so is the frame rate defined? Is the frame rate defined anywhere, or is 60 FPS a default? I don't remember. I, in fact, am just guessing that 60 is how many times Nannou calls. I remember reading that effectively there's an internal counter somewhere, but I will need to correct that if I'm wrong. And this is also incorrect, so we want image. Now texture. Oh, so no, we didn't do anything with texture yet. That's not really useful. We want to say model. Ugh, that's in the way. Excuse me. Model texture is assigned to or equals texture, which is the local variable. Okay, so hopefully we will now start to see the images change. I'll explain a little bit about what I did as well. So if I've done this correctly, it looks like I haven't. I wonder what's happening. It's doing update. Interesting. In terms of, so there was a good question here. Do I need a reference to image? No, I don't. It turns out that integers actually implement the copy trait, which means that they can be freely copied around and duplicated when needed. Now, I'm a little bit curious, though, about why the texture isn't being reloaded. I've got a warning about... I know. So there's a very important warning, actually. I'm just going to... I'll update the settings so that you can see. Terminal text. I'll change the font size in the terminal to say 22. And now you'll be able to, it's a bit big, but okay. And I'll just change the text size in just the editor as well to that large. I'll change that to 22 as well. It's probably a bit big, but that's okay. Well, yeah, that is quite large. Sorry for mucking around. I should have done this before I started. Can everyone hear me okay, by the way? Is the audio okay? No complaints. I assume that's yes. So it tells me here, by the way, that function is never used. Update. So I need to actually register this update function in main. Now, I think I just do that with update and then provide the callback. Hopefully. Sound is fine. Okay, right. Fantastic. Then, okay, so, yay! All right. We change. Now, what would be really cool is if we could kind of get some kind of fade going. Now we're getting faster, which is a bit strange. Okay. Whatever. Now, I actually don't know how to do that. So I could learn now, or we could play with we've got two textures, and what would be really fun is if we could just kind of multiply one with the old one. I wonder if we can do that. Now, I wonder if they support multiplication. No, they do not. Textures. So the frame buffer, I can't just treat it as like a numeric array. Now, so the texture is on the GPU. Let's see if we can, is anyone interested in finding out whether or not I can get them to merge? We can keep playing. So I need to go back into the API documentation for this because I don't really know enough. Now, texture, it's in here. This is actually the same type. It turns out that it's quite complicated to see, but we can see that I'm in Nannou underscore WGPU, which stands for web GPU, source texture, which is okay. Now what can we do with it? We've got this is creating textures, but what I really want is, can I get the image data itself, or can I play with it? And I'm sure the answer is yes. Oh, there's a view. What can I do with a view? Just checking the comments in case someone is screaming at the screen telling me that I'm an idiot. What I'm going to do, I think, is that I can change it to a buffer. What I might do is play around with, I wonder if I can do this. We'll just see if I can take the texture from the model and we have just say new texture and old texture, which is a terrible variable name, but okay. Now I would like to copy, and I want to call the toBuffer method. Oh no, I don't want to write it out to a buffer. I just want for you to give me something. What do I want? I have to actually give it a device. I don't care about that. I just want the data back. Okay, this is boring. Let's find something else to play with. You can see how we've progressed though. We started by only playing with the view function, and now we have been able to update. I want to have another go at that fade though. I've just thought of something new, and I'm just sorry for jumping around, but in terms of, so yeah, we start with the view. The view is the body of what happens in Nannou, but it only takes immutable, that is read-only references to app and model. It does actually take ownership of frame because the frame is used once. At the end of view, there is no need for frame and it's deallocated. So the view function has ownership of frame, but it can't actually touch application or model. The update step does have mutable access to the model, which is how we were able to modify the texture and update the image that is displayed. This is a relatively inefficient thing to do. We could have basically loaded them all into textures and then rotate. But whatever. Maybe that's why things got faster over time. Now I can also change this so that we have, I don't know, let's make it a bit more crazy. And I want to try and do something interesting, which is to get the drawer, which is kind of an object that allows me to draw. It allows me to kind of create things and manipulate them. So I could create like a rectangle, and that rectangle could have a X and Y or a width, let's say, of app.screenSize or window, unless the API has changed, and then width. I'll take this one away, and the window will be, it'll take app, and we'll call the window method. Is it current window? Maybe the alright. What about as RGB? Really? Is it that easy? Does it just do that? So I've got as Hal, which is, at least as an image. So I'm copying it out of the GPU and into kind of into video memory. Sorry, just into the CPU's memory. But that doesn't work. I wonder if I can to owned. Interesting. Into inner. What's inner? I shouldn't play with this too much. What I wanted to do was create my fading effect, and I'd really like to, but I can't. So I'm going to close that down. It's dead to me now. Nannou can do some really fun things with meshes. And what on earth is a mesh, you may ask? And we'll find out shortly. It's kind of a mathematical representation of a clear to black. Use the mouse position to change the frequency and amplitude. Now create an iterator which yields triangles, which draws sine waves. Now that's a bit crazy. But it's there. That's going to give someone epilepsy. Sorry about that. Now, what's another one? One thing that's a little bit complicated to think about, or at least I found it difficult, was that they had this idea that, well, you need to color in each each line segment of a polyline, which is a line made up of multiple straight lines. So, and effectively it's a curve. But each one is actually treated independently, which is convenient if you want to treat them independently, but it's annoying if you just want to talk about the whole line or the whole squiggle as an entity. So we can adjust this. So it's changing its behavior based on where my mouse button is, I think. And let's change the number of points and see what that does. So if I change this up to 100, it will... Also, I had a question, which editor am I using? I'm actually running VS Code. I am really boring when it comes to my editor because I want anyone who watches my tutorials to be able to download exactly the same thing as what I'm using. Now that sounds a bit lame and like a little bit, what's the word? Should we say just a little bit, but no, yeah, that's the reason why I use VS Code, is mostly because even though there are other editors that do more, they cost a lot of money, and I want people to feel like they can participate in Rust. Which editor or which extensions do I use? So if I go to extensions, I'm using not many. So my setup is a bit weird. I have the Rust Analyzer extension installed, and the weird thing about it is I am a little bit confused because there is a different extension which is supposed to be the official one that supports Rust Analyzer that I also have installed but disabled. And because it just kind of kept crashing or something. So that's what I've done. I just haven't quite got it exactly how I would like it. Rust Analyzer though is supported by some people that I really like to be associated with, and so in particular, I'm big fans of Fairer Systems as well as Embark. I think they're good humans, and so I want to support their work. And I also know that Matt is also a good human. Okay. Now, the other thing, just by the way, talking about good humans, the Nannou team are also really cool. They're based in Australia, actually. So I'll just close down this. Oh, actually, I'll bring it back and change it to Explorer, I think. Now, there are some really... how do I do this? Now, so this is a little bit complicated. If you haven't used Rust, this looks a little bit strange because there's no for loop in here. Instead of iterating with a for loop, we're iterating with, in some sense, iterating with a map function, which is this garbage that starts with these vertical bars is applied to every element or every element within the iterator that is generated from 0 to endpoints. So if I said endpoints was 3, it won't be a very attractive line, but it will be quite fast to run because it doesn't have as much work to do. So you could see here, by the way, that the hertz of the sine wave is relative to the x position and the width, and like just with a little bit of kind of craziness involved as well. So we take that to the power of 4 and times that by 100. Yeah, so this is an interesting point like Chris makes around editors. So I could recommend a free one like Emacs, right? So you can code really, really nicely in Emacs, and but Emacs always makes me feel like a really stupid person. I just feel so dumb, and I don't have an extra 4 or 5 months just to learn an editor when actually everything else is hard enough to learn anyway. Or there are very expensive IDEs that provide you a lot of support, but if you are from a country that and you're not earning US dollars, then that's, I think, you shouldn't be spending a month's salary on your tooling. I think it's just not fair. So you may as well use a free one. Cool. That isn't to say that I don't really like free software. I actually I've tried multiple times to learn Emacs. And I haven't been able to figure it out. Now this one is really cool. Alexis Andre, also known as Mac Tui Tui, on Instagram, has some ridiculously amazing sketches, and I'm excited to see what this one it does. I think I know. It is going to be, so we've got some Perlin noise. So this is, so we're going to introduce randomness. It's still compiling. Oh, neat. So we have, again, another like sort of sine wavy thing. We're trying to get to Joy Division for some reason. We're kind of going down that path with this work, but we can change this. So we could change whatever we wanted. And one of the things that I think I'll try... Oh, look, and I was actually proven wrong just then. You can just modify the whole... the whole line as an entity. So you do have the ability to so I've got this points colored thing, which will go and play with each specific point, but you can also do some other stuff. So what I'm going to do is just change your RGB 8A and do, so it's blue white, so 255. What I'm looking for is kind of a blurry effect, and I'll make that 220. Take that away and stroke here, and then I'll also make the fill. This is going to kind of turn a bit weird, but this is kind of how it works with creative coding. You have a rough idea about how things are going to play out, or you kind of are interested in exploring, but you don't really know if it's going to work. I'll change the alpha channel of the black. So we'll just change the colors, but no, the behavior shouldn't have done it. Such a bright screen. Yeah, I'm never sure with these things if I should go for a darker editor or not. The advantage of using a light editor is that, because it's nighttime here, it's just before 10 o'clock at night, is that I can, you can definitely see me. I don't need extra lighting. I have another light, but it's not plugged in properly. Cool. Okay, so that was fun, sort of. I want to see some of his other stuff, though. It's really, really awesome. I'm a little bit upset is too strong. I'd love to see even more. Let's go through some of the more complicated examples. So, as well as just examples that explain the API, Nannou's team have implemented all the examples from two other books. One is Nature of Code, which is Dan Schiffman's book. Now that was originally implemented in in processing, but it's been re-implemented in Nannou, which is quite cool. So if you have a background in processing, you can kind of see and compare and contrast. So we're going to be doing 6_01 seek. The names of the examples are just the file names, And just to we can compare the Rust version. If I go to nature of code, so we just got like one little thing that's flying around and it's hunting for the mouse. In fact, I think there's a Boyd's implementation later. And I've got stay within walls trail. That seems kind of fun. So we'll run that one. So that's 603 stay within walls trail. So there's a lot to do without your... Sorry, there's a lot you can explore without needing to know a lot about the API, which is really helpful because sometimes you don't really know what it is that you're trying to experiment. Now, if we go to... what am I trying to say? If we... so we're talking about vectors, which is kind of interesting. So this is the original one. Let's run seek again. Like, so yeah, we've got both versions. In fact, the JavaScript version, I think it's in processing.js, is just a little bit zappier. And then further through, you can continue to expand. And and there's another book as well, which is lesser known than the nature of code, called, in English its title is Generative Design, but in German I think it's Generative Gestaltung. And it has some really fun... So actually we'll go into this generative design, and I actually would really like to see where the original ones are. So yeah, Generative Gestaltung, creative coding in web, im for in the. And now the book, sorry, not the book, the website has some really fun examples that are neu, alt, new, old. So there's an English version and a German version, and I think these examples relate to, I guess we'll find out. I was going to say the English, sorry, the new one, but maybe they don't. Let's try, this one looks fun. P_1_2_01. So you can see that they're implemented in processing.js. And I know that because I've got here p5.js, actually, which is different than processing.js. So what it's doing is taking an image and then recursively shrinking it, I think. Oh, gosh. Did you mean p with a little p? Yes, I did. So it's doing some more stuff. I don't have the book, unfortunately. So I'm changing my mouse, changing where my mouse position is, and it's adjusting the image. If I go to the left, it is clearer, and as I scroll to the right, the image actually changes. It becomes blocky and pixelated. So you can see immediately, just comparing these two workflows, that the Rust project is slower. Like, it's difficult and annoying in some sense to get going because you do have this compile step, and often the compile step involves compiling lots of code. In this case, I can see that there are some like web. So we've got the HTTP body passing by. H2, I didn't realize was its own crate, but whatever. Things like cookie. So what it's doing, it must be calling out to the web, and I assume that what it's doing is actually looking inside. It's sending a web request to a webcam sitting inside an U-Bahn, or like an underground train station in Germany. And but I mean, I could probably look that up, but it's taking a while. Compiling Wikipedia, that doesn't make any sense. So now hopefully the Rust version will eventually compile. Oh no. After compiling Wikipedia, the difference though is that the Rust version is much better. That's fascinating to me. It's much, much more responsive. Now I can't convince you of that just by looking at it. Well, what am I saying? I can't convince you of that through the internet, but it's true. Now, how is this implemented? Then one of the other features that processing has is its ability to respond to input. It provides a lot of functionality for you to be able to see what things are happening. So how about I'll use this example, changing the size and position of a letter. Or should I start with, or just should I carry on with, I'll go back to this number 1. Oh. And, oh no, we'll demonstrate some of the interactive features because they're quite useful. It means that you can actually create interactive works. Now the keys here are we can change a letter or we can save to PNG. So it's one of the other things that I'll try to demonstrate is that if I... Oh, that sounds like a problem. There's a bug. I've got not much happening. Oh gosh, something's breaking. I'm going to not do that. Okay, that one's buggy. Random and noise. What I want to see if there's a particular type of program that I really enjoy watching, and I will go back to that website and see if they've got an example of it. I think I recall seeing it. Oh, so that's fine. I just get some jumping around, randomness and noise. So if I go back to shape, it's this one here, I think, is one of the ones that I would really like to see again. And down here is a really beautiful one. So this, we'll see. Let's go with these flow fields. What I'm really interested in is finding a flow field. I bet it works in JavaScript. Just try it in JavaScript. Oh, there you go. So this is what we tried to do, was change this letter, but we couldn't get it to work. This is the example that I want to try to see how it goes in Rust. Are there any good YouTube videos on that? What could you say? I've lost the context of what you're asking about. Could you just tell me what it is that you would like to be seen? What I was talking about, and I'll try and answer that question. Did you mean this? Was denn? It's been a while since I've been in Germany, but I can still swear in German, which is useful. Ugh, how annoying. Sorry about this. I'm trying to... This will probably fail again. Did you mean... No, I did not mean that. Maybe it hasn't been implemented. This one hasn't... If it's not working, then it's not working. This is weird. these two are some of the examples that I like of programming. These are one of the things that I like the most. So this is called a flow field. What we're doing is we're creating a underneath all of these particles are a. Let me just why is that confused? Oh yes, I am. Underneath all of these particles is a field. You can see that it's slowing down because I'm compiling, and the the browser isn't getting as much access to the CPU. The Rust implementation is significantly faster. So this is kind of, to demonstrate again what the differences are. That the Rust is going to run a lot better, but the workflow is annoying because you need to wait for it to compile. So that's at the flow fields. I can change I'm sure I could change the flow field settings. M_1. It's this one here. So let's play with this one a bit. I'll just keep it going because it's kind of pretty. Now, how do we deal with random noise? Oh, so there's actually a switch noise mode. And if I push 1 or 2, it changes how the particles behave. We can also clear the screen, so I'll just backspace, I think, or at least I'll try to. It's not very responsive to that. Oh, so space changes the way, so that changes their seed, but clearing the screen sort of does nothing because they're just too quick. We can change some of this behavior. So we've got update and update 2. We might create an update 3, which is the broken thing that I'm creating. Now, what should we do to change it? So this has just got we're getting a point out of this 3D space. And the 3D space is actually a field of directions. So we got an angle, and then we want to be able to so in update 1, the angle is just a function of welcome here, Ed. It's really lovely to see you. Kia ora. I'll be delighted to see what you're going with. I think that you'll probably have more mileage with other platforms, but yeah, maybe Rust is something to play with as well. Yeah, I'm sorry for distracting you from your work. It's one of the hopefully your stand-up won't notice that you are playing around. Okay, so where were we? We're going to try and create a new update function. We've got these two, they're spinning around, that's quite nice, or what have you. And I'm going to, so we need to, first thing we'll do is create update 3. Now update 3, and I'll explain what's going on. Actually, I might turn this off because it's distracting me. Update 3 will take a mutable reference to self. So that means it's a method and it will be able to update itself. It takes in this purlin object, which is something that has a get method, which returns some value inside the space. I don't really have time now to explain how this is working or how noise functions work, but except for to say that noise from a computer graphics point of view is similar to randomness, except that points that are very nearby are close in the output. So they're kind of random, but they're still patterns, if that makes any sense. So one of the things that I noticed that we could do is we've got multiplication. So we're taking a product, but so we'll just say so we want to adjust, and then we can just say, but could we should just modify something. I think we should just add sign in here for some reason and see what happens there. So at the moment, update 3 cannot be called. We need to add it into our function. As we discussed a little bit earlier, update is the function that gets called in when at every frame to update the current state. We have this purlin object that we initialize. And then depending on the mode, which relates to which buttons we've clicked, then we kind of call out back to a callback. And if someone has, so this one here is just saying that we can't, this actually should be impossible. So if you were interested in doing this in Rust, outside of computer graphics, you might say I think it's unreachable. And this is a marker to the compiler that this step will never occur, and so it can actually just execute, or it just opens up the opportunity for some optimizations. There's another thing as well, which we could do this a bit differently. Out here in the parent scope, we could create the update function and then match on mode and then call, and so we'll just return, what am I not making any sense? It's 10 o'clock. We don't have to use the callback directly. We can just return the function and just say that we've got a function here. Now we don't have it. Oh, we don't have an agent. Oh, okay. We just won't bother. That's fine. It knows what it's talking about. So let's see if the other thing we need to be able to do is receive input from the keyboard. And we've got some more callback methods which we define. Then, so let me show you how we've done all the wiring together. So inside main, we've got a model function, and that model function is what initializes our agent. It sort of initializes the state, or in fact, it initializes model, which creates several agents, 4,000 of them, in fact. View, and then update is called with the update function, and then we dispatch to the correct one based on which button we've pushed, and hopefully the behavior should change. It doesn't look terribly different, but kind of fun. It doesn't look a lot different from 2, which is unfortunate. I kind of want something that's quite distinctive. But yeah, we can create these sort of interactive experiments that run really, really fast, I think is the main thing. And the one thing, I'm actually going to sign off pretty quickly, but the one thing that I would note is that there is a lot available to you that doesn't require a lot of prior knowledge. You can just use these examples and tinker with them to see how things go. And one of the things that I would like to show you is what's just happened right here, which is like drawing an alpha channel. So what I'm going to do, it's defined here as white, but I'm going to just say that in every frame, I'll get these. I'll change the way that I'm not making any sense. What I'm trying to do is change the way that the streaks appear, because the code is actually only drawing one dot every frame. But this alpha, like the transparency is adjusting. Now let's also change the number of agents we've got. So we had 4,000. Let's make 40,000. And let's increase the range that we can go. I wonder what will happen there. I'm probably going to kill my computer. If the stream just cuts out, you know that I failed to compile. Oh, so this is really, my computer's really struggling now. If this was implemented inside a GPU shader, I'm sure that it would run much more smoothly. But what actually is happening is all of these calculations are occurring for 40,000 different little agents, and that happens on the CPU. I haven't actually delegated that to the GPU yet. You can do so. You can kind of reach for the GPU, but it's not something that I've played with. You can definitely see, though, that the kind of changing some of these parameters really does have a big impact on the kind of the texture of the work in a way that you wouldn't have expected, given the fact that we've only changed very few lines of code. In fact, all I did was change this alpha property. I'll change it back to sort of, well, let's go for 10,000 because I'm guessing that will work. And the only thing I really changed was this 97. So if I change it back to 99, we'll get a very different feel. He says, "Oh, so now we're going fast again," and I think I'm a little bit confused because I expected to see long streaks. Now, what is model overlay? Let's. And I think I've just realized what model overlay is set to. Let's have a look. So it's actually the opposite. It's actually 003. Now, if I send it to 0.3, let's try and change it again. In fact, let's make some of them different. So if Nannou provides us a random range ability, random range, and I want a minimum, say 0.1 or 0.01, and then the maximum of 100th through to 1/10. So some of our little agents will be very streaky, and others will not be. We can also change. We can change several parameters actually. The darker lines obviously are much more dominant. We could start to change things so that if you are if you're a very streaky line, like you've got, then you go at a different speed. I'm just going to play with that. By the way, I will sort of wrap up pretty soon. It's just getting relatively late, but this is fun. So if you've got any questions about Rust or about who I am or about Nannou, please let me know, and I will try to answer them in the chat, I suppose. And I'll just try this. The noise strength will be 10 minus base, or the velocity can be inversely related to the alpha, let's say. Oh, let's actually just change the speed. We have a type error. You can see that we've got some kind of red lines. It's probably because it wants an F32, but we only have an F64, so that's fine. I can change that. That's a bit strange. I think the reason why the types are getting confused is that actually, what is velocity? Does that require? Oh, they require different types. So this first one requires an F64, which is not useful for me. And so the type analysis thing changes. And I'll change this. Getting way ahead of myself, but what about Nannou and the WASM? So Ed is asking a really, really good question, which is, can you just export this to the web? So WASM is a little... WASM is this called... is short for WebAssembly. It's this kind of a new, relatively new set of technologies. But yes, absolutely, the answer is yes, you can export these to the web and embed them in web pages. And in fact, you can do all of the work on the client's computer. And so they could render it themselves, or at least, so you wouldn't actually need like a server generating images on the fly, which is then streamed through the web. You can see, by the way, that a lot of our curves are tighter than others. And also our patterns start to wave around, and that's because the vectors that are underneath in the force field, or in the vector field, I suppose, are affecting each agent differently. That is, it's the same direction, but they have this weighting parameter, which is strength, and so the agents which have a very high strength are affected more strongly, and so you get the kind of a really different feel for the work. Just is significantly different, even though we've only tweaked parameters. We haven't actually changed the code. And so again, if you are experimenting with this kind of stuff, feel free to play. Oh, I just went and maximized. Yeah. Well, I have had heaps of fun. I hope that you have. I can probably share some links if you don't know who I am. It's the easiest way to kind of find me online is through Twitter, I think. And other than that, I will sign out. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Friday. If you are from anywhere else in the world, if you're from New Zealand, I hope that you have a really lovely weekend. And kia ora. I shall see you later. Wow, there's a big buy. I just noticed this. Buy Tim's book. That'll change your life. That's incredible. Thank you so much again. It's so really. I've been completely thrilled with how well it has been received. It was a struggle. It nearly cost me my relationship. It cost me my health. But I discovered today, just before I sign out, I discovered today that actually it's selling really well in Japan. Like, I'm big in Japan. And one of the things that let's just have a search for it and see if it could find it. Here we go. So this is the English edition, and that's on sale. But also there's a Japanese edition, and like this is the Kindle version. It's like doing crazy well. Like, of all Japanese books, it's 1400. It's incredible. The softcover format is the one that I actually want, though. It's 500th of all Japanese books. Like, how does that happen? I just have absolutely no idea. It's just absolutely over the. I'm just ecstatic. Anyway, with that, I'll sign you up. The English the English version is also available on Amazon. I should stop pumping my stuff. I always feel a bit awkward. But hey, when you write a book, you are also a you think you're just an author, you're just a writer, but actually that's not quite true. You're also a salesperson as well. Now, the English version, actually, surprisingly, hasn't done as well. I'm only 112,000. So take what you will. It turns out, though, that a lot of people actually buy it directly from the publisher. They don't buy it on Amazon. And also, I got this really shitty comment about someone who is an expert and just decided to say that... but surely signals are common knowledge by now. Probably you can't see it. There we go. I think about this review a lot, and I just, oh well, yeah. And I mean, I should say that the O'Reilly Programming Rust book is also wonderful. So, but anyway, I should go to bed. I really should. Yeah, and if you have to care about work, do that. Have a lovely day. Ciao. Bye-bye.